Okay, here's another one. 2 Corinthians 4:18. While we look not at the things which are seen. So we're not going to look at the things that we see right in front of us. But we're going to look at the things that we can't see. For the things which are seen that we can see are only temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. The carnal mind can't do that. Man can't do that in themselves. We have eyes. We look at the things in the world, and that's what we look at until God comes and gives us something better to look at. He gave us Jesus, raised from the dead, immortal, never to die again. That's where our gaze should be. That's where he's bringing our gaze to. We can't do it in our own strength. I've many times said, God, teach me how to focus on the resurrection. I don't even know what that means. I don't have any trouble now. And I certainly didn't do it. I'm not the one that changed my focus. He changed it. But that's all you got to do is cry out in your need and your want and say, God, show me what you want me to see. It's so easy. And yet sometimes for us, it's so hard. We can really see the contradiction in this particular verse, because the natural or the carnal mind in man sees only with his visible eyes. He doesn't have the ability to see what God sees. But the spiritual man has had his eyes opened by God, and he sees what God sees, the life that God has. And it makes it so that he's not bound to the things of this world. Here's one that's really meant a lot to me. 2 Corinthians 4:16 says, For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. What a contradiction. The outside is mortal. Our earthly bodies are mortal. They're decaying day by day. But on the inside, we have God dwelling in us, and he's renewing us every day. That word renew means renovate, new, freshness, and regenerate. That's what the faith of God is doing inside of us, not us. God is persuading our hearts about what's really important, about the source of life, what the source of life is, and where it really comes from. I think we can all agree. We all want love, we all want joy, and we all want peace. And we want to have it all the time. There's the problem. We want to have it all the time. And so we're going to a place that can't give it to us all the time. This earth can't give it to us all the time. It doesn't have it in itself to give. And it doesn't even have the real deal. I have found over the last few months, the love that I thought I was going after from the things of this world, it's nothing compared to the love that God has put in my heart. The peace is nothing compared to what the peace of God is. And the joy, just like it says, unspeakable glory. I mean, it's like once you get it and you've had it happen, you realize there isn't anything in the world that can give it to you. It's just not possible. The love and the peace and the joy that God has for us, it's eternal. It doesn't die. It doesn't vanish. It doesn't wash away. It isn't fragile. God's peace passes all understanding. What does that mean? It means you can have God's peace when everything is going wrong. Now, I didn't used to believe that. I'm going to be honest. But I believe it now. And when the day comes and I'm tempted to not believe it, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go sit at God's feet and let him persuade me until I'm re-persuaded again that yes, that is the truth. So, since the time I was a little bitty girl, I've had a severe fear of death and a severe fear of fear, which you can have fear of fear and it can really mess up your life bad. And it's because of the things that I witnessed as a child in satanic rituals. But the worst part of it, it isn't what happened. It's that I was told it was happening because God wasn't there and God didn't care. And in my heart, something very ungodly happened, and I began to connect death with the absence of God. Oh boy, that's really tough. I didn't realize that it was even there in my heart, although I knew I had issues. You know, I talked about skirting around things rather than facing them. So I knew death bothered me. It bothers everybody. But mine was way overboard. Like most people in this room probably could watch a show, and if somebody in the show dies, you're not going to be in a 4-day depression. I would be. I could not encounter anything with death because to me, in my heart, without realizing it, that said God wasn't with me. And so I would go into despair. I tried not to think about death as much as I could. So I skirted around it and avoided as much as I could. Along with that fear was the fear of doctors and medicine. One of the leaders in the satanic rituals was a doctor, and I was drugged quite a bit during all of it. So guess what? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to avoid doctors and I'm going to avoid medicine. And you know, I've done a really good job, I thought. I did a really good job until about a year ago. I thought it was working. I thought it was working really good for me. And when I did feel bad, I just wouldn't accept that I was sick because that's what the things I would skirt around and not deal with it. So a few months ago, I realized I really should go see a doctor. What I'm doing isn't working. All my analyzing, all my figuring out, all the things I've been doing, it's just not getting it. As I thought about going to see the doctor, as I thought about them wanting to put me on medicine, as I thought about the possibility, listen to this, y'all, this is how weird the carnal mind can become. When I started dealing with the idea that I might be mortal, because you see, I was skirting around death. And so you can't entertain the idea that your body's mortal. You've got to avoid it. You've got to run from it. You've got to hide from it. So as inevitable as our mortal body's dying is, those things started coming up in my heart. Not during the day, because during the day I could skirt around them. I could stay busy. I could do what, you know, I could do. And I could go to sleep. But during the night, the fear would just jar me awake. And it came in the form of the absence of God. That's what I felt, just like it's what I believed as that little girl, that God was not with me, that God would not help me, and I was all alone. And that was the worst part of it. This went on and on and on for about 30 nights. I didn't even have words. It was just the cries out of my heart. But you know, don't you think God knew what was in there? God knew exactly what was in there. And this story ends up really good. I'll tell you now, it ends up really good. So I began, as the nights went on and on and on, the fear rose. Where was my God? Why wasn't he taking away all this fear? Why wasn't he taking care of whatever it is that's wrong? Night after night after night, I cried out as best as I knew how with my feelings and all that I was. On the 30th night, words began to form out of my despair. And this is what I began to say. God, I don't even care how all of this ends up. I don't care what's going on in the carnal realm. All I want to know is that you are with me, and you are the only thing that matters to me. Bam. Bam. That was the place. Giving up the ghost, letting it go. Letting go of all your efforts and your trying. And you trying to get God to do what you want him to do. Because you think that's what's going to give you life and peace and joy. I had stopped seeking life from this world. That's what happened. And now it didn't seem important at all. I just wanted God's life, and I wanted to live out of my relationship with him, which, y'all, I've had since I was 25. It's not that I didn't have the relationship. It's that things in my heart were hurting the relationship that I had with God. So, in the next couple of days, I made an appointment with the doctor. One doctor, another doctor, another doctor, another doctor. Biopsies. And it dawned on me, where is the fear? No fear. No fear. When did God do that? I mean, sometimes you have an epiphany and you know it happened. I can't say when he took it out of me. But by the time I went to the first doctor, all the fear was gone. When the doctor gave me the diagnosis of cancer, I didn't care at all. I wasn't afraid. In fact, Larry was there with me. I felt like I had to console him. I mean, he was trying to hold back tears. And I'm going, what's wrong, man? This is okay. This is okay. And I can remember one of the things, you know how sometimes somebody just says something and it may not be for that exact moment, but it goes deep in your heart and you hold on to it and you don't let go of it. Well, in Word of Faith that I was in, there were certain things, like I said, that we focused on that were very important, to the exclusion of many of the points that were most important in the gospel. Well, one of them was about Lazarus being raised from the dead. A lot of emphasis on that. And that, hey, there's my answer. There's my answer. He was raised from the dead. See, and in my mind, sick, carnal mind, that took care of mortality. He was raised from the dead. And one day, my wonderful son just shattered my little carnal mind. And he said, you know, Lazarus did die again. No, I didn't know that. I had never entertained the thought. Because you see, you weren't allowed to entertain that thought. You could only entertain the thing that you wanted. Oh my gosh, how scrawny and frail is the carnal mind and anything that is not from God. Only God's life can stand up to all these things and bring you out of it happy and with a smile on your face. I have been filled with more love and joy and peace than I think I ever have been. How is that? It's because I've been listening to the faith of the Son of God for week after week after week. And finally, I gave up the ghost. He'd been putting what I needed all along. But I gave up the ghost, and I said, I'm not going to try to get my life from the things of this world anymore. And I'm not going to run from the things that scare me. I'm going to let God come in and take care of those fears for me. I'm not saying I don't get knocked down sometimes, because I do. But all I have to do is go and talk to him again. And there's the faith of the Son of God and the Comforter, just telling me exactly what I need to know, pulling me up out of the carnal dirt and lifting me up to immortality and resurrection power.